time to get geeked up.
But like we were saying, with us watching The Gentleman and talking about the Willie Nelson live stream and being 420 yesterday, we're going to take a closer look at best pothead stoner movies, I guess some characters, but also want to point out in a very 420-esque thing that there's a good chance we might have done this closer look before.
Yeah, I guess the question is how many 420s have we celebrated with this very clever topical, dude, best stoner movies.
Yeah, so take a listen back and see if our opinions change at all. But
yeah, no, definitely.
Pretty similar. But
I mean, yeah, but like you said, what's more of a stoner thing than doing your favorite activity 1,000,001 times?
I told you that story, but I get to start it off. I'll kind of maybe I've said this before too. I don't think so, but I'll start it off in an honorable mention kind of way, and just name some characters that are always kind of imply that they were potheads, but you never actually really saw them smoke.
Good call.
I would start with, I would say, Wayne and Garth.
All right.
Definitely seem like stoners, but you never actually see them smoke weed at all.
Yeah, little PG. Wayne's World was a little PG for them smoking a joint, although...
Garth, I would say Bill and Ted.
Okay, 100%.
Like obvious stoners.
Definitely the California vibes, but 100% stoners.
Again, never really show them smoke weed. And I guess to close out that list, really at the head of it, though, Beavis and Butthead. Always implied stoned idiots, but never actually seen them smoke weed. I think it's always just implied that they're idiots and not so much stoner.
Okay, yes. Yeah, see, I, as a kid especially, being a big Beavis and Butthead fan, what were we, like 8 or 9, 10 when we were big Beavis fans, definitely always kind of looked at them more as, like, idiots and, half, mentally challenged kids as opposed to stoners. Although, once you hit high school, I guess, what's the difference? They all put us in the same special education class anyway, so...
Yeah, really. Speaking about some slow kids, I think I've definitely said this on the show before, but I know when I was younger in middle school, there was a good 6 months to a year where I only talked in Butthead voice.
I mean, I still pretty much exclusively laugh in Butthead voice, but...
Yeah. One of our early reviews, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's definitely a good list right there of characters. I guess maybe kind of even a piggyback on that, but a scene, like a whole thing that's very implied to be smoking, although I don't think that they're ever actually seen smoking. But how about the gang from That 70s Show in the basement? They're obviously getting high.
Sure.
I don't think that they're ever, maybe it's like a smoke-filled room, but they're not hitting the weed on a Fox sitcom. However, when they go to the basement and they're...
Even so much so the smoke is always, even on like one of the first episodes, like how so lights an incense stick.
Okay.
And puts it down.
Interesting.
So, that's where the smoke's coming from. It's always implied smoke. Yeah, you're right. I don't think they ever actually show a
Yeah, like everybody knows what's going on. You could even parody that now by just the camera cuts and all that kind of stuff, and you'd be like, oh, that's 70s. I mean, if you're a big Burnout, you'd pick up on that one real quick. But it's like a very iconic weed culture thing that is actually not. Fox could win the lawsuit very easily.
For sure.
And I'm sure they did, as a matter of fact. But
I guess to kick off the movies, and I'll even throw a curveball in this one, too, what I would say, it's definitely made to be an anti-weed movie, but it's become such like a cult classic, is like the old 1920s PSA Reefer Madness.
Okay, of course.
Just like a hilarious thing, like when you're like 16 years old and getting high and like watching it and being like, wow, this is bonkers. They thought about weed like that.
Yeah, it's basically like, did you say it was from the 20s?
I believe it was like maybe the 20s.
I thought I didn't think it was that early, but yeah, it's definitely just like a very legendary like anti-marijuana propaganda that goes on, and it's just like meant to be now in repeat viewing for high school potheads that giggle along to the potential troubles and problems that weed would.
For sure, 1936.
36. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's like seriously like one of the first like talking pictures though. Right after Wizard of Oz, they fucking cut up Reefer Madness.
Yeah, I think
I guess that'll get me into my. I guess that'll get me
weed
into
before
my
they could see Wizard
19.
of Oz.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that'll get me into my 1930s pick. But Wizard of Oz, exclusively watched with the Dark Side of the Moon soundtrack. But a high school stoner classic, trying to A, get it timed perfectly, and B, figure out if it's not just a game in your head that's going on. But
Yeah, like I guess that song fits.
do you have any theories on the you've obviously tried.
I've obviously done it. I've done it successfully. I've gone to one of the laser light shows.
Okay, yeah, nice.
And where they just do it for you.
Yeah, that one they're kind of cheating. I mean, they really.
But yeah, no doubt I definitely tried to do it, and I can't remember if I successfully did it or not. But if you would have asked me back then, I'd been like, oh yeah, dude, this is totally. Actually, no, I guess I always thought it was such a crazy thing because it was done by accident. I don't think like Pink Floyd intentionally was like start now. Okay,
No,
we
dude,
have
it's
to cut
even
this
crazier.
album.
The Wizard of Oz actually did that, which is crazy because it came out like 50 years before Dark Side.
Yeah, they're like, look, check it.
However, it was actually them that coincided.
Wrap your mind around that.
Yeah,
I guess
try to.
then,
I guess
the
I'll
next
get us
movie I
into
would-
another one from there, but how about kind of in a similar theme to Wizard of Oz, but the whole hilarious genre of like pothead anime and cartoon movies like Fantasia or really like anything from the more anime, Akira, anything from that category. That's like a must-watch stoner.
Sure. You could say like Yellow Submarine.
Okay,
Beatles,
great
Yellow
call
Submarine,
there.
Until Tripped Out Fast.
For sure. The trying to avoid the blue meanie and get high on the side.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Fritz the Cat is another pretty crazy animated movie about like this alcoholic pot smoking cat made in the 70s, which is it's pretty bonkers, dude.
There was that, it could have, I thought it was going to qualify, but it was actually super psychedelic, and I'd say more of like a mushroom movie, but I forget what it was even called, but I'm sure this will maybe segue us into his movie collection, but it was a recent like Seth Rogen cartoon movie where they were like in a big grocery store. You know what I'm talking about? They were like products in a grocery store, but it was like it was really like a psychedelic journey of a hallucination tale.
Yeah. Well, especially too, what was it called? Because at the very end too, like they're brought to mention that they're in a cartoon. They're like, no, you're voiced by Seth Rogen, and yeah, it wasn't a very turned out movie. I had just in the Seth Rogen aspect of it though, Pineapple Express.
Okay.
On there, of course.
That's really
Just
grown to
because.
be one of the more recent years, like all-time stoner classics. You know, of the late 2000s. That's probably the number one on the list.
Yeah, and it's just pretty because it is like your classic pothead, goofy movie, and then it also like randomly turns like an action flick.
Yeah, it's kind of like The Gentleman almost, where it's like. But yeah, definitely a pothead stoner comedy classic turned into, like Devin said, fast-paced, a high-action thriller.
Yeah, but with the comical stylings of Danny McBride, you really can't go wrong.
Exactly. When you get a Danny McBride and Seth Rogen team, you're definitely going to have. I guess even Danny McBride's like one of those where very, very synonymous with like pothead shenanigans, but he's not necessarily like smoking weed in all of his movies, but like beloved by potheads across America as Danny McBride and his various.
For sure. Sausage King or Sausage Party.
Yeah, Sausage Party, exactly.
Kinda
I guess let me
Kojak.
throw out mine, I guess, for my like just definitive pothead stoner movie. There are a couple of there's the short list of true classics. For me, the definitive stoner movie will always be Friday. All right, it's Friday, ain't got no
For
job,
sure.
you ain't got shit to do. But that was definitely like, a repeat watching favorite. Definitely, part comedy as well, kind of part action, part drama at the end with the late John Witherspoon giving you some wisdom. But, from the weed deals, from smoking all the weed they were supposed to sell, very relatable to stoner movie plot, but...
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the coattail off of your Seth Rogen thing is kind of something I was thinking about. But Dazed and Confused would definitely be like a great stoner movie.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say it's kind of where you get your like Matthew McConaughey being this stoner guy. And,
that's where it all comes from.
Besides the fact that he is, but like really think about any other like McConaughey movie where he's like playing a stoner.
Yeah.
You think like so synonymously with him like Matthew McConaughey being the stoner guy, but like
for sure.
Really,
dude, one of what's really interesting, I think
where he's actually playing a stoner.
Yeah, up until the Gentleman, it's but dude, you want to know what's interesting too, and I'm sure we've talked about it before, probably on last year's 420 when we brought up McConaughey and Dazed and Confused. But have you ever seen the McConaughey auditions for that, where Linklater like had to totally coach him into how to being that like beloved pothead that we all know now? But if you YouTube the auditions, Matthew McConaughey, Dazed and Confused, and watch him trying to spit out those lines that are now like so iconic and all, it's really amazing. And it does show like the evolution of Matthew McConaughey. You're totally right, because that's like has become so synonymous with his image, I guess even before that, but we have Spicoli, another total burnout character.
Sure.
I mean, I guess was Spicoli ever actually smoking? I think he definitely like told the teacher he was going to go burn up, but
yeah, I think there's actually it's a good point. I know there's actually a scene of him smoking. I guess Sean Penn would have gone the other way though with
yeah, that's true.
Like,
definitely.
You look at Sean Penn now, you don't think of classic.
No, he tries to resist Spicoli as much as possible. I guess getting us back into Dazed and Confused, like you were talking about, though, definitely one of the all-time classic as well, just in terms of like, especially high school stoner relatability to with like the establishment versus the burnouts, where it's like the kid on the football team has to choose: am I hanging with the stoners or going with coach? And there's a very
it's a very high school relatable movie. Every like high school group is kind of represented in it. There's even that terrible B plot with Adam Goldberg and that orange fluffy haired girl.
No, for sure. I mean, it's really probably more of a high school movie. We could definitely throw it in our last day of school, or our summer movie, Closer Look.
School's out for summer.
Yeah, but definitely you're right. Like a high school movie, but the iconic, and McConaughey, mind you, is like in his early 20s in that movie, hanging out with a bunch of high schoolers, like the Noah and Creed. That
they keep staying the same age.
But I guess we'll get you into a couple more just iconic, legendary pothead stoner movies, I guess. In recent years, I said Super Troopers late 2000s. That was probably still early 2000s. Another couple early 2000s classics, but Harold and Kumar has really grown to be like all-time stoner movie, and especially if you're of a certain age, that's probably your definitive, as well as Super Troopers, which is probably on the cusp of the 90s. But just, entire movie revolving just around one big weed joke. Yeah,
no doubt. I'd say a couple to me that were like go-to stoner movies, and both two are kind of two that snuck in. Like one wasn't really advertised as such. That was definitely Grandma's Boy.
Okay, I mean,
like,
for sure.
It was advertised as like video game. He lives with his grandma and he's 40 from all the Sandler guys. But then it just turned out to be like this super pothead movie. Like
the 100%.
whole entire movie they're getting high. It's like, okay, interesting. I would say another one like that is kind of different. I mean, obviously it was advertised like this, but one that's near and dear to me is Method Man and Redman's How High.
Oh, of course.
And only because it just turned out to be so good. Like, you went into that movie and was like, all right, let's watch this garbage. And then I was like, fuck, that was really entertaining.
Yeah, man, honestly, we've talked about it before, but it's amazing that like, comedy deal, because they were definitely setting themselves up, branded, because both of them, in their music, are so heavily, like they're so heavy weed smokers just in their music, and then they've obviously got such great chemistry together. When they came out with that movie, you were expecting them to be the next era of Cheech and Chong and like a whole series of Method Man, Redman, Pothead movies, and it's really amazing after how good How High was that was really the end of the line for them. And of course, Method Man has like went into more serious acting, but how that like comedy duo of Method Man, Redman has not made like a whole shit bunch of horrible movies is really beyond me.
Yeah, me too. They that movie's so good too. They even talk about it in the new Jake Silent Bob movie. They one of the recurring jokes is Jay keeps talking about how much he loves How High, so much so that there's a fantasy sequence with Method Man and Redman in it too.
Oh, nice.
Pretty epic.
I mean, I guess right there are two great characters that you can throw in there. I mean, I guess they have smoked on screen, but Jay and Silent Bob are, stoner heroes for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the whole thing. They're weed dealing outside of the Quickie Mart.
And I guess, I just brought him up. Yeah, I guess that's it. But I guess I just brought him up. But, I mean, you can't do a stoner movie list with, of course, the real godfathers of the whole experience, but Cheech and Chong revolutionized the whole stoner comedy genre, and
Absolutely,
really...
dude.
What's up?
I said absolutely. I agree with you.
And have really, I guess we've kind of got a little bit of one of each, as Cheech has kind of broken out of character. However, Chong has totally stayed typecast.
Yeah.
Chong, actually, huge breakout role for Chong in a recent Nick Cage horror movie, Color Out of Space, that I talked about on one of the winter movie previews. Was kicked ass. I'll get into it maybe some other time. But Tommy Chong, amazing role as himself. But Cheech is like you'll see him in like more serious stuff. However, neither one of them can ever really outgrow them. So much so that he still goes by like Cheech,
Cheech Marin, yeah.
Yeah, so that they still even go by Cheech and Chong. But the movies definitely stand up.
Right.
I'm sorry, but the movies definitely stand up the test of time as well in terms of comedy classics, where they're like, super, especially Up in Smoke, but super, super funny movie, and like I said, really more just like innovative in the genre of stoner comedies.
Ooh, baby, it's time to get geeked up.